Hey everyone, in the last video we learned about Astro and how to create a static website using Astro. In today's video we are going to learn more about Astro. So in the last video I told you about that you can use frameworks like Vue or React to create Astro pages. In today's video we will see how to use React to create pages in Astro. On top of that, we will also learn how to paginate pages in Astro. So let's start with creating a new Astro application. So create a folder first of all, more Astro. Then you have to write npm init Astro, and this will initialize a Astro project for you. So we are going to go with starter project and React. Once you are done with that, open this folder in your favorite text editor. I use VS Code, so I am going with VS Code. So okay, so this is your Astro project, and we are going to go to the src folder, and inside the components folder we are going to create a React component first of all. So let's suppose I want to create a list of fruits. So I'm going to create a fruits component and I will call it tsx, because you can use tsx, jsx and js files and ts files out of the box in Astro. Okay, so we are going to create a simple React component which is going to print the list of the fruits which are received from the outside world. So we are going to receive the list as a prop. Okay, props, and then we are going to simply return a div, and inside this we are going to iterate over props dot items, and then we are going to iterate over it, props dot items dot map and item, and it is going to be a list tag. Okay, and we can call it item. All right, so this is our small component. So let's use this component in index.ts. From index.ts, clear everything, because we are not concerned about whatever that was there in this page. We are just concerned about displaying our React component. Okay, so save this file and create the front matter block here and write import fruits from components fruits dot tsx. Okay, and then simply write fruits. Okay, and let's start this project by typing npm start in the terminal window. Okay, so we have to install the dependencies first of all. So for that type npm I. Now that our dependencies are installed, we are good to go, and now we can run the project using npm start and head over to this URL. Okay, and it says that we do not have a renderer in place. So in case you are using a Vue component or a React component, you have to use a proper renderer. So if you head over to Astro renderers, you will get to see a list of renderers. So we want to use this astro.js renderer React, because that renderer is responsible for rendering our React component. So we are going to stop this project. We are going to install this React renderer as a dev dependency, and then in astro.config.mjs file we are going to use it like this. Okay, and you have to put it inside the quotes. Okay, now we can start the project. and let's visit our site again, and we have got a blank page, which means that Astro is not encountering any sort of exception, but we are not getting to see anything as well. It is because on our index.astro page we have not provided a value to the items prop. So let's do that. Inside the front matter script, create a list called fruits, and then you can create a simple string list containing various fruits and oranges. I think that would do. And over here we have to type this items equals to fruits. All of these constructs have been discussed in my previous video, so in case you have missed that previous video about Astro, I highly request you to watch that out before continuing this video. Okay, let's head over again to our page, and the list is visible. So now we have created and used a React component in our Astro website. But one thing to note here is that as of now, whatever we have coded in our fruit.tsx is being converted into proper HTML and then plugged into this index file, which means that React here is being used as a templating framework only. We cannot have any sort of dynamic elements on our React page. So let's create one more React component which will be responsible for showing us a picture of a dog. Okay, so as soon as that component loads, it will display a picture of a dog from the internet, and that picture is going to be changed every single time that component loads. So you can say it has a dynamic element in it. So let's create that component, dog.tsx, import react and use state along with use effect from React, and then create a function dog props, and we can have a URL which points to that particular dog image, and we are going to use a online API in order to get that URL. So let's first of all create the skeleton of our component. So use state, and it is going to be blank in the start. Then in the use effect thing, when this component loads for the very first time, which is ensured by these empty square brackets, we just want to fetch the URL of a dog's photo from the internet using that particular API. So for the time being, we can use await fetch, and Astro ensures that fetch is available for you, so you can readily use fetch without importing anything. And let's plug the URL later on, and then we can parse this data from the JSON, and then we can set it. So now it's the time to plug that API. So there is a API called dog API. Okay, so we can get random dog images from that API. So this is that particular URL. If I head over to this URL, so this is that random URL. So every single time you are going to hit this API, you are going to receive a random dog image which is represented by this URL. So you can readily create an image tag and use this URL. That's what we are going to do here. So we are going to plug this URL over here. Okay, so this will ensure that as soon as this component loads for the very first time, this block runs, and then this URL is set. Okay, so since we are using await, we have to mark it as async. Okay, And then over here we can just simply return diff, and that diff can host an h1, a random dog appears, and then our image tag, and the src is going to be set to the URL variable. Okay, so we are all set. Now we can use this dog component in our index page. So again we are going to import it, dog from components and dog.tsx. Again we are going to use the JSX syntax, and let's head over to our page. And as you can see that no image is being rendered over here. And if we can open the inspector and look at the code, we can see that src is unknown, which means that this particular blog is not being run, because as we have already seen that Astro by default ships 0 JavaScript, which means that it also tries to ship 0 JavaScript in this particular case, which means this particular thing is not going to be outputted when Astro creates the final build. So this is skipped. That is the reason we are not getting to see anything over here. So how can we do that? Astro allows you to do partial hydration, which means that it is not going to take all the JavaScript out of that component. It can leave it in place, but you have to tell Astro that leave this particular component alone. I do not want you to extract all the JavaScript out. Just do the partial hydration. And there are certain aspects to this partial hydration. So you can tell Astro that only hydrate this component when it is loaded, or only hydrate this component when the viewport is of certain size. So there are certain strategies. So if you head over to astro.build and go to the documentation part and then look for partial hydration, you will get to see all the strategies that are available to you. And these are client load, client idle. So you can read more about it. And here we are going to use client only. So this client only tells Astro that just leave this component alone, do not do any sort of partial hydration. So Astro will not pick it up for removing any JavaScript from this component. Let's see the effect. If we reload this, now we are getting to see this broken image. Let's see what error we have in our component. So from the dog API response, let's see what we get, because we are not parsing the data correctly. So we get message. So here we have to set data.message, and we have forgotten await over here. Okay, so now our dog image is working correctly. If we skip this client loading part, if we do not do the partial hydration, again this component will stop working and all the aspect of dynamicity will be removed from that component. And again the Astro will resort to its default behavior of ripping out JavaScript from all the component, and it is going to use the React framework as a templating library only. If you want to keep the dynamic elements in place, make sure you are using one of these partial hydration strategies. Okay, so for my component I'm using client only, and it ensures that my component works. So every single time I reload my page, I get to see a random dog image. Now a very important part of building any website is the pagination thing. So if I want to paginate over any list, or if I want to create a series of pages which shows a collection but in chunks, I need to use pagination. So the next what we are going to see is the pagination thing. We are again going to use some data, and we are going to use Pokemon API. Okay, so this is that API, and we are going to get a list of all the Pokemons, and then we are going to use that particular list in order to create a paginated list of all the Pokemons out there. Okay, So it is going to be like Poke/1 and it is going to list certain Pokemons, and then Poke/2, then it is going to list the next X elements and so on. So let's create a folder first of all inside the pages directory, call it Poke, and again over here you have to create a dynamic page and call it page.astro. Okay, you have to use this page property. It is a convention and Astro will try to look for page property, so you cannot name it anything, it has to be page. Okay, then in your component create a front matter script, and from here you have to export a function get static paths. Okay, and this thing takes an object containing the paginate property or method, okay, which we are going to leverage. And from here we are first of all going to fetch the Pokemon list. So again we are going to do constant response, and we are going to have await, and since we are using await we have to use async over here and fetch, and then our URL. Okay, again we are going to plug in the URL later on. Then from the response we are going to get the data by again doing response.json. So let's head back to the Pokemon API and let's see how we can get the list of all Pokemons. If I do this, I will get a list of 20 Pokemons, and if I want to get page 2 of this, so in total there are like 1118 Pokemons and I have gotten only 20. So this is probably the first page. So I can use something like this limit. Okay, so I can do limit equals to 100. If I do this, I get 100 items. Okay, so I can use this thing. So this particular URL followed by this thing, and it will get me a list of 100 Pokemons. Okay, and then I can paginate over these 100 Pokemons. So I can display only 5 Pokemons on one page or 10 Pokemons on one page. So for the time being, I am going to show only 5 Pokemons on a page. Okay, so this data thing is going to be this particular object, and this particular object has the results. Okay, so data.result is going to be the array I'm interested in, and then we are going to define the page size. Okay, so the page size is going to be 5 in our case, which means that on any single page display only 5 Pokemons. Okay, and then we also need this page number, right? So using this page number, Astro will determine which list or which Pokemon list to show. Now we can display the page number. We can do h1, and then we can do page dot current page. So page has certain other properties which we can use. So current page is one of them, and we can close this thing, and then we can use page dot data. Okay, and then we can iterate over this page dot data dot map. And again we are going to create a list Poke. Okay, put it on next line, and this Poke is going to be this object. So name and URL are going to be the two properties of this Poke object. So Poke.name, and let's see if it is working. So head over to localhost and then go to pokey/1 and it says internal error. So it should not be the default function. Okay, so we have gotten our list, and if we go to page number 2, we will go to the page number 2 of this particular thing. So now since we have gotten like 100 Pokemons and we are only showing 5 of them on any single page, so we are going to have like 20 pages. And if we try to fetch the 21st page, we are going to get this error because there is no 21st page, right? So this is how it works. So as we have talked that page prop has certain other properties as well which we can leverage. One of them is the previous and the other one is the next property which we can use to create the navigation. So href page.pref.url. So this is going to be the previous page, and then page.next.url. This is going to be the URL for the next page. So this is how you can create the navigation. And go to 20th page, reload this thing. Let's see the documentation. Go to the API reference part, and here it is. Page URL next. I think I have missed the sequence. It is page URL pref and page URL next. Let's see if it is working now. Okay, so if we go to pref, it is working correctly now. So this is how you can create paginated views for your data. There are other niceties in Astro as well, like the code block and all, which you can learn in your own free time, but it is not that important and you may or may not need that, so I'm not covering it. But if you need it, it is there. So you can head over to astro.build and then search for code, and you will find the code component, this one. So it is as simple as importing this component and using it in your Astro page. So this brings us to the conclusion of this Astro series. I hope you enjoyed learning this new framework. In case you have any question regarding this framework or any other question related to the IT field or software development, make sure you either ask it out in my Discord channel or leave a comment on this channel. I will be happy to help you out, and I see you guys over in the next video.